guys, this is what if Callum from the Dragon Prince was or had spider powers. So I hope you guys enjoy this fanfiction. Let's just dive right into this with extra Mr. Diddy type. But let's just dive right into this fanfiction, bro. So basically, it's been a while since I've done the Dragon Prince type of what ifs, and I really want to jump back into this franchise because I really want to. Okay, I'm basically restarted rewatching the series. I rewatched the whole series, or I'm about to rewatch it. I'm like at episode 4 right now of season 1. I'm about to rewatch the entire season to get, basically, let's say, brushed up and picked up the pace because I kind of maybe around when they went towards the, I think, Magic Cave is when I stopped watching. When I, let's just say my Netflix account, I'm broke, guys. I didn't keep up with my payments, bro. But you guys can help with that. I'm broke. I can't eat. But you can help with that, Kev. No, I'm playing. But let's just dive right into this fan fiction. Only OGs will know that reference, but let's just dive right into it. So, basically, normally I start off with the original, OG first episode when I do my old Callum what ifs. And it's exactly what I'm going to be doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we're going to dive right into this fanfiction. So we start the story off with Callum. And Callum's character wouldn't change too much because the only thing that would change in this continuity is him having spider powers. Now, I'm not going to give him that Uncle Ben type of storyline, but I'm going to make him a little bit different in certain ways. Now, Callum will still be a very artsy type of kid and actually be more interested in art, per se, sword fighting and fighting in general, alongside Claudia's brother. Now, honestly, I hate this character so much to a point where I literally just forgot his name. I swear to goodness. I swear to goodness. I hate Team Rocket. I forgot both their names. Both of the brothers' names. I mean, bro. Both of the siblings' names, bro. I hate them that much. But basically what would happen, you see Callum, his day would have gone similar the same. We get introduced to the backstory of Zadia and the elves and the Dragon Prince and everything, how the humans fought back and took out the dragon and killed or destroyed his only heir, the Dragon Prince, the egg. Also, we get a little bit of a backstory about one of the very first dark magic users was a human, and they basically pushed out humanity, leading to humans fighting against them, taking down the dragon and killing the Dragon Prince and destroying the egg, supposedly. So we get switched to current time, as we get switched to moon elves gliding through the forest, eventually coming across a nearby guard on his shift. Now we would see a elf would have came after this, guard, basically letting him go, seeing the fear in his eyes, as this would be a huge mistake on her part. But us having we're being shown her humanity, her compassion for life, and how she doesn't have what it takes to take human life. And that's character design is going to push Callum even farther into his character development in this continuity. So we get seeing that what would happen is the same thing would happen. Her line about killing the guard and eventually them being outed by the guards and then finding them, or supposedly almost finding them, with a moon elf moth, or moth elf, or a moon moth, or whatever, giant moon moth, given by Claudia's father to Claudia's brother. So what would happen is we get switched to around the same time. Well, let's just say Callum would be going around this area. As Callum would have been chilling and relaxing and doing his thing, him eventually getting interrupted by his brother around the time the king would have told them about what was going on and how they were going to the lodge, and them also saying, why are we going to the lodge? Ain't it supposed to be, a winter lodge? Everything fun there has to do with snow, and it's spring, buddy. The king proceeds to say, maybe you could do other things that involve dirt, making a dirt man, or mudslaying, right? Mudslaying, right? That's something, right? Something you young bloods do nowadays, right? As they would just scoff at this, and we would see that Callum's character, he would have a little bit more quirkier one-liners, kind of like Peter Parker. We see that Callum would have started to talk to his stepfather, as we would see that their relationship would have been on and off. He would still care for his stepfather, the king, but he wouldn't really be comfortable calling him dad, even though he's raised him for a good amount of his life. We get switched away from Callum, and we get switched to the dynamic between Claudia's father and the king. And their dynamic is tricky. But it all goes downhill once the night of the moon elves attack. And this is when things take a turn. Before that would happen, when they were basically, well, let's just say, packing up to go to the lodge, Callum would not yell at his brother, but his brother would have interrupted him, actually telling him about the caves that he's found a lot earlier, since he did find 2 caverns instead of 1, and the second one has something different, something that would change the course of the story completely. So we see that Callum would be confused, as they would have gone through the caverns and the basically walkways through the castle, as he would have been confused, saying, "How did you find this, Ezra?" Ezra saying that, "Well, I came across this a few months ago, and I found 2 different caverns. One with something glowing like an egg, but also I came across another one with animals and experiments." As he would have been confused, saying, "Experiments? What are you talking about?" They would have opened one of the caverns, the other one, the one that would change the course of the story. A cavern that would have had different vials of poisons and elixirs, and one of the vials saying goblin elixir. But him walking around, as he was seeing different type of technology, suits, advancements, and all sorts of other technology similar to the steampunk era. They're not even there yet. They're still in the medieval era. So this is highly advanced stuff, as Cal would have been super interested in all this. His brain, like, honestly being shocked and just intrigued by everything he sees. But him eventually looking closer to one of the vials or one of the tanks, as it would have been a spider enclosure. As he would have looked closely, saying in the tag, saying that it was supposed to be 6 of them, but it was only 5. Callum being confused on where the other spider was, but before he could think and walk around, basically Ezra would have heard tapping, and both of them would have heard walking in the, caverns. As they both would have ran out of the cavern area and would have let themselves out. Them hiding behind some rocks, seeing that, Claudia's father would have been behind all this. Him walking around and going to the cavern, and basically him searching around and picking up a elixir, a green vial saying goblin serum. Him looking closer to it, saying that this might be able to save the king, but he doesn't know if it's going to change him. Them being confused, saying, "What do you mean change him?" As he would have heard this, as he would have tried to point them out, but Callum and Ezra running out there as fast as possible, not trying to get caught, and they would exceedingly get out of there. As they were getting out there, Ezra would have gone back to packing, but eventually the same argument would have sparked up. Ezra running back into the basically caverns, as we would see that Callum would have tried to follow him, but him just saying forget it, as he would have walked off. Him going back around, but him forgetting where the last opening of the caverns were, so he went back to try to find his brother, walking around the hallways of the castle. But eventually, him coming across, Rayla. As Rayla would have cornered him and basically would try to jump after him, eventually then coming into the book study area, the same area where the big painting would be to opening to the caverns. The same thing would happen, him trying to say that he's Ezra, he's Prince Ezra, and to kill him now. But he would try to convince Rayla that this isn't the best thing to do, yada yada yada. The same bull he was saying earlier, right? That we didn't do anything, and I have nothing to do with what you and my father are trying to accomplish. Humanity made problems. I know they made mistakes, but aren't you attacking us unprovoked, the same thing as we did before you? Her saying, it's not the same thing. We're attacking you, provoked. As they would have tried to attack, as eventually Ezra would have interrupted them, telling them that, or just basically, this was distracting Rayla with a huge blast of light. And this light would have caused a chain reaction on the spider on Callum's neck. As Callum's spider would have been startled and would have bit him on his neck, him yelling out in pain, because it would be a very, very sharp pain, but he would have ripped it out, and seeing the spider attached to his neck by a spider web. Him throwing it off and seeing that it had red and blue logos all over it, and markings, and I guess crest on it, but him just throwing that out of his head, walking away. As he would have been running away alongside Ezra, as eventually they would come across the other cavern he was telling him about, the egg. As they would have still been in the same situation, as Callum and Rayla and Ezra would have all seen the egg. As she would have said that this could change everything, that your father doesn't have to die, the world could somehow, maybe, find peace amongst the realms, amongst the countries, the places, the kingdoms. As they would have started to talk a little bit, but eventually them being interrupted by Claudia. As Claudia would have told them to get them the egg, and saying that this elf just wants to take it since it's a powerful weapon. But basically Ezra saying, what do you mean a weapon? It's an egg. As Rayla would have said, yes, it's alive and it needs its mother. As she would have said, you're just doing tricks. You're playing with my emotions. As she would have tried to tell them to get behind them, as if she even takes one step, she'll take her down. As we see how Callum would try to convince her that this isn't the right way, and that this could save the kingdom. It could bring peace. As she would have said no. Them going back and forth. Eventually, let's just say, Ezra would have told Rayla to follow him, as they would have dipped out of there. Before she can shut off a lightning blast towards Ezra, or towards Rayla, not trying to hit Ezra, telling Callum that she won't hit him, but Callum not trusting her, also still him wanting to do the right thing, as she would have pushed her out of the way, locking her to a chain and grabbing the ball of lightning that she shot, as she would have ran off. Now, the same thing would have happened as Callum and them would have been running off, eventually being chased by demon dogs. As eventually he would use a wind crest or a wind magic spell that he found or saw on Claudia early on in the episode, as he would have shot it at her, or shot it at the demon dogs, pushing them away since they were made out of some sort of magical mist. Them dipping out of there, but eventually, as they would have been on the top of the roof area, Callum would have started to lose consciousness a little bit. Around the time he would have told the other elf, Rayla's friend, or Rayla's, I guess, head chief, as they would have been introduced or told them about the egg and about how it can save and change the course of this whole thing. They don't have to kill the king. They can bring peace. As well, he would have said that it doesn't work that way, Rayla. We bonded ourselves. We can't just, it doesn't work that way. As they would have tried to fight, as they would have gone into a fighting stance and then rushing towards each other, as Callum and Ezra would have ran off with the egg. Ezra hiding, but Callum trying to go up to the king, telling him about what happened, but Callum starting to fade out of consciousness, as the spider's effect of its bite would have started to affect Callum slowly but surely. As Callum would have started to be passed out, as eventually he would have been right at the area, right when he was taking his voice away by, Claudia's father. Basically what happened is he would have grabbed his voice back after the elves would eventually attack, after Rayla was surely figured out that she was just buying time for Callum, but they would have dipped out of there and eventually proceedingly killing the king. As Callum would have ran out there, but before he can leave, in the far side, Callum would have passed out after the red arrow was sent off to warn or tell Zadia that they succeeded in their plan on killing the king. Now, they would have been at a campsite chilling it out, as Rayla would have tried to wake him up, slapping him in the face, as Callum would have woken up. As Callum's clothes would become a little bit more fitting, because Callum technically does have a type of baggy pants on throughout season 1, or throughout the seasons, so his suit his outfit is more tight-fitting on him, since Callum has grown exponentially taller, around the same height as Rayla to Claudia. With this newfound growth, but also changing in his body, as Callum would have felt himself stronger. Him looking towards a puddle of water around, taking off his shirt, as Rayla would have been kind of blushing and saying, "Why are you taking off your shirt?" As Ezra would have said, "What the heck? How did you get a whole freaking six-pack?" As Callum would have started to look at himself and flex, saying, What happened to me?" As they basically would have seen a bite starting to heal on Callum's neck. As Ezra would have said, "Did you get bit by one of the spiders in the cavern?" As basically Rayla would have said, "Spiders? What cavern? What are you guys talking about?" As she would have said that, I did get bit by a spider, but I didn't know it was the same spider in the cavern. But I guess since I did experiments on those animals, I think it changed me. I think it was maybe cursed or maybe modified with magic, as he would have said that, well, we don't know what it's doing to you, but it seems like it made you better. As Callum would have said, ouch, but basically Rayla saying, well, you do look better, I guess. As basically we would have looked at each other, having a little bit of an underlining blushing towards each other, but him basically rushing that idea out of his mind, him still having a somewhat very big attraction towards Claudia, as he felt a little bit bad about what he did to Claudia earlier. But before that would happen, eventually he would have started to sense things that he couldn't sense before, like his senses were heightened, and even then his spider sense started to progress slowly and surely. But before that would happen, they would have still had their little talk about the four primal sources later on in the day, but also them talking about how they might want to go near the Winter Lodge. As Rayla would have said, really? A lodge? A lodge that your father knows he sent you to, and probably half the kingdom knows they sent you to, and probably knows that you probably went there too. Also, it might just be crawling with humans that were looking for you and also want to kill me. As she would have said, well, no, it's the Winter Lodge. Around this time, it's completely empty. Trust me. As she would have said, trust you. You grew about almost a foot in a night. And now you are more muscular. You look a little more toned, but still, as she basically would have said toned. Looking at me? As Riley would have said, put your shirt back on. As Callum would have put his shirt back on and a scarf, saying that we might want to go towards the Winter Lodge. Her saying that, fine, whatever. But if this turns out to be a stupid plan, I'm getting you back for this. As they would have made their way down the Winter Lodge alongside Ezra. But what would happen is we would see that, well, what would happen after that? We see that Rayla, Callum, and Ezra, and the frog thing, whatever it is, Missy would have made their way towards the Winter Lodge. But them also talking about how, well, let's just go get your QB thing, okay? As him saying that, let's go. As they would have gone down the, basically, Winter Lodge, the same reason why they went to the Winter Lodge to begin with in original. As they would have been on their way, as Ezra would have still did his old kitty thing, saying that I'm, as she would have said, we're not stopping, and we're not getting any snacks, okay? As she would have said, no, I'm thirsty. Or her saying, fine. As she would have pulled out a vial or a, I guess, glass bottle with a red liquid in it. Pause. But is that Paul? I don't know. I don't know if that's Paul's or no Diddy. But we would see that she would have put out a red vial, as basically Callum would have stopped Ezra from drinking and saying, well, no thank you. We don't drink that. Her saying, what do you mean? Him saying, we don't drink blood. Not to be rude or anything, but we don't drink blood. As she said, rude. You're beyond rude. It's just in blood. It's juice, dumbass. As she would have said that, is that what humans think we are? Bloodthirsty monsters that drink blood and kill children? That's some bull. As she would have said, proceedingly, as Callum would have said, well, it's what we were taught as children, okay, man? Chill. Her saying chill? Man, shut up. As they would eventually make their way near the outskirts of the Winter Lodge. Now, with the Winter Lodge and them being there, as they would have made their way to put the egg in, well, Ezra's bag, keeping it concealed. Now, what would happen is, well, they would have made their way in the Winter Lodge and would have walked in, as Rayla would have checked out the scope and would have ran around it, using her superior acrobatic skills to get around. As Callum would have started to walk around, as basically what would happen is, well, Ezra would have been picked up by, well, Aunt Amaya for both of the boys. Aunt Amaya. Basically, I think the boy's mother's sister? I don't know. Their aunt. I don't really give a fuck. I don't really care really related on what part. They're still their aunts. They're still their aunts. So what would happen is she would have said, I'm glad your boys are okay. As they would have both been picked up, as Callum would have said, Aunt Amaya, it's nice to see you. As they would have talked to each other, and as she would have used sign language to communicate with him, as, well, her subordinate or her translator would have talked to the boys for her. Now, I kind of forgot that she was mute, I think, or deaf. So I forgot that she had those things. I haven't seen this show in a long time. But Aunt Maya would have proceeded to, well, translate to them that she's here to keep them safe. And then after the news they got from the, well, let's just say kingdom about what happened, they need to check out and see what's going on here to see if they were safe. They would have coped out the scene or chased out the scene, seeing guards all around the area and trying to find some food for them to eat. Eventually, Callum would have opened up the note that he got from his father, but keeping it to himself. Now we would see that Rayla or Ezra would try to cut the bread they were given, but it's hard as hell. So let's say what would happen is later when Callum sat on the couch, things would have changed. His body would have started to really take effect and show him that he was different now. Callum would have laid his hand down on the couch, but he would have realized that he was stuck to it. Rayla would have started to move his hand faster and faster and faster, but eventually him literally ripping the cushioning off of the couch entirely. As people would have looked over, as he would just put his hands back in place, saying, "Oh, nothing, I'm okay." As he would have relaxed, letting go of it, him being confused on what the heck was going on with him. As he would have sensed things going on around him that no human could sense, like the birds chirping outside from, well, miles to feet to kilometers away. Him looking closely at certain things, like he can see better, he can hear better, he can smell better, he can sense better. Like he could sense things around him that even things like hearing, smell, and touch and feel couldn't even sense itself. Like he had an extra sense. He would have been talking to Ezra, but his sensing and his mind being scattered around, as he would be confused on what the heck was going on. Him eventually walking away from Ezra, keeping to himself and trying to stay to himself. Now we would see that Rayla would have gone into the cabin trying to find the box thing of the four primal elements, or the four primal elements, as he would have been basically taken hostage, or not taken hostage, but being basically detained by Aunt Rayla, or Aunt Anaya, as they would have taken her down and locked her up, or basically chained her up, as Callum would have seen that they need to save her and get her out of there. So Callum would have tried to use his abilities to his advantage, saying that I'm sticky now, Ezra, as him saying, is that what changed? You're taller, you're muscular, and you can stick to things? It's kind of weird. Callum saying, it's more than that, but I'm going to try it out. As Callum would have looked down the shaft area he was trying to basically hit bait down, as he would have basically started to crawl himself down the shaft area, as eventually he would find Rayla, as he would have grabbed Rayla's ropes trying to cut them before he can cut them with a knife or a sword he could find on the ground. He would have grabbed them and easily ripped them apart, as Rayla would have said, I didn't know you were strong, as him saying, I didn't know either, as they would have proceeded to try to get out of the way, or trying to get away, as well we see that Rayla would have tried to get out of the way and try to run away, as they would eventually find themselves outside. As basically Aunt Rayla or Aunt Anaya would have told them that it's okay, Callum, or would have translated to them, it's okay, Callum, I've slayed monsters before, take her out. As they would have started to unleash arrows on top of arrows on this girl. I mean, god damn, she was cooked. As Ezra as Callum in this short second, his wrists would start to tingle, as he would have opened out his hands trying to stop them, as webbing would have came out of them, stopping the arrows. Some arrows would have came towards Callum in this era, as Callum would have dodged out of these, his body taken over like this, that the spider sense took control and started making him move in inhuman ways, like doing triple backflips and jumping off of little arrows in thin air. As people would have been surprised by this, and Ananiah telling or doing a translation, as he would have said, I didn't know. What happened to you, Callum? As Callum would have said, I don't know, but she's okay. She saved us. As they would have basically been kind of trying to fight against them, but we would see that they would have done a run for it. As them running for it, but eventually Rayla would have seen that they were literally overwhelmed, as he would have grabbed Callum and used him as a hostage, finding themselves near a boat area and is heading towards the water. As eventually what would happen is they would have sent an assassin after them to save Callum and take her out. As we will see that Rayla would have been really pissed off, saying that I can't believe you humans are so cruel. You guys only think we're monsters. What have they been teaching you all these years? As Callum would have said, I don't think you're a monster, Rayla. I don't think any of you guys really are anyways. It's just It's just the way we've been raised for so many years. Humanity has painted you guys out to be the picture for thousands of years. It's just the way things are. As Rayla and them would have looked at each other, as she would have been displeased with what happened, but her also saying what happened with you. You jumped and moved in ways I could even imagine to do. As him saying, I don't know how I did that either, but something's happening to me. And I think with the help of you guys, I can figure it out. As he would have looked at the cube saying that I don't even know if I need this anymore. But maybe in the future, I might. As they would have looked at each other, but eventually we get switched to, well, Claudia's brother and their father. His father would have told them about the kingdom, and everything would have happened exactly the same, to put it simple. But we would see something different about it. His hair was growing fuller. His silver streaks were gone. Somehow he became stronger. Somehow his body has changed. Somehow he's became super. So I'm gonna leave it out here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. And guys, you already know what I'm trying to do with Claudia's father. I'm about to make him green guy.